wonderful to see so many people who survived such an intense day. Congratulations. I'd also like to compliment our in-person audience for remembering to wear your pants today, because we've all been on Zoom for long enough that I didn't see any pajama bottoms. Very impressive, guys. For you at home, you do you. All right, so we have gotten through a really complex, but I hope also a really enriching day for everyone here. I know that we've been wrestling with some big issues, some big questions, some big tech, not in the way that we usually use that word. And I hope that everyone feels that they've gotten something out of the conversations today that made them look at things differently, or made them understand better what their power position is and how can they leverage that in a more equitable way, either with the partners that you work or even in your own life and your own pursuits. So, without further ado, I think you guys probably know what's coming. I can't see the Menti. I don't know if anyone else can. Oh. Menti's on strike. Well, that means my entire presentation is on strike, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to ask for a little tech angel to come bring me an advancer. Here we go. There we go. Unfortunately, our online and our in-person audience haven't seen the QR code, but if you go to menti.com and you can put in the code 37347686. All right, so the Menti, the question of the day is, write 3 words that captured your day. We're really interested to hear, in an incredibly, unfortunately, unfairly abbreviated way, how did you feel about what you experienced today, what you heard, what inspired you, what challenged perhaps a previous perception or expectation? And yeah, what did you enjoy, hopefully? Well, that's unfortunate. Well, yeah, so we'll just go to the PowerPoint. There we go. Oh, was it back? Yeah. Okay, so I'm seeing dialogue, I'm seeing engaging, people, networking, interaction. I like that people feature heavily among the words that we are featuring today. So I definitely am feeling that myself. It's really interesting. I was just speaking with a colleague about, I want to say in early 2020, how my biggest problem was I had Zoom fatigue and staring at Zoom all day and how exhausting that was, and more exhausting than interaction with people. And now I have to admit, like, interacting with people is a new level of exhaustion in a new way. So it's all to say that we are clearly very adaptable animals, and we are continuing to need to adapt. So I'm really excited to see some of the words on the page showing up. Interesting, inspiring, engaging, interaction, and people. Excellent. All right, now let's move back to the PowerPoint. Can we move back to the slides? There we go. All right, without further ado, I am really honored to be able to welcome one of our closing guest speakers, Lex Gerts. He's the head of the Stabilization and Security Unit at the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's part of the Department for Stabilization and Humanitarian Aid. So Lex, I'd like to welcome you.
Thank you very much, Megan. Yeah, I was advised to be short, so I have not prepared any speech, but yeah, I would like to share just a few takeaways with you from today, and they vary from the very practical to a few more substantive findings. And my first takeaway is the knowledge platform really knows how to organize a conference. I would like to make a big compliment to Megan and to all of her team many people in her team, for the organization of this conference. It was well prepared, the topics were well chosen, great speakers, and also I think the keynote address of this morning by Séverine was quite inspiring. So really a big compliment. My second takeaway is also still relatively practical. Despite a few tech issues in the afternoon, I think hybrid conferencing can work quite well. One of my colleagues is based in Paris this year, and he was regularly sharing enthusiastic feedback throughout the day in our team group app. Other colleagues, they were here for the whole day, maybe for the brownies, but definitely for the people, and they engaged in real interactions. And I myself, I did a bit of both, in person this morning and online in the afternoon, and it worked quite well. So you set also a good example there, I think. Third takeaway is that we have homework. As the vision for security and rule of law, we are in the midst of adapting our theory of change and updating our narrative. And as Mariette said this morning, the idea of building local resilience and focusing on localization as an instrument is part and parcel of that effort. And in that regard, today's sessions and also the address by Séverine was quite helpful and inspiring and timely for us. Of course, it was also clear that this approach presents quite a few challenges and dilemmas. Yes, we need the bottom-up approach. Yes, we need local organizations in the driving seat. And yes, we need to involve our beneficiaries in the design of our programs. But do we have the capacity on our side to really know the local context? And do we have the patience to find the right partners? And which is also necessary for us to be able to scale up these types of interventions. And do we accept the risks that are involved in this approach? And do we have the buy-in of our political masters for such an approach? I mean, questions that I think were posed today, were addressed today, but maybe not solved. So in that sense, yes, very good food for thought and some homework. Fourth takeaway, maybe the elephant in the room. When we are discussing the strengthening of local resilience, the strengthening of our preventive approach, of course, the recent experiences in Afghanistan are on everyone's mind. So yes, it is quite important that we are learning the lessons of 20 years Afghanistan and also of the contributions that were made or not made with our engagements on the security and rule of law. I think someone noted today that the evaluations and the learning exercises currently go sometimes in many different directions. So I think it's really important that we are preparing the right questions for these lessons learned experiences, and that we are really focusing on the things that we try to influence, and how did we do that, and what are we learning from that. So there are even more homework. And then the final and fifth takeaway, and that is the takeaway that I took also from the address by Séverine, and that she appealed to us to focus on the pockets of hope, on where have things gone right. And she appealed to us to build on those types of experiences. And I thought that was a very nice and hopeful message, and I wanted also to conclude with that. So with that, thank you very much. Give it back to you, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gert. It is now my honor and also my privilege to be able to introduce Teresa Mugadza. She works as the country manager for the Kenya office of IDLO, that's the International Development Law Office, organization, excuse me. And one of the reasons I say privilege is also because I have offloaded onto Teresa a very, very heavy task that she gets to try and reflect on the richness of the day. And in my mind, which is now a bit mush because it's mixed with logistics and details and chasing people, she's had the opportunity to focus on the content of the day, which is really what today is supposed to be about, besides people, because we saw how much that was an element. So I'd like to introduce Teresa. She has actually been able to see quite a lot of the, let's say, the chain of power and the perspectives of power in her own career, having worked also as the Deputy Director for the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, as well as an advocacy coordinator at Oxfam. So she's really seen a lot of the spread between NGOs, INGOs, international organizations. So with that, Teresa, I welcome you for your reflections.
Thank you very much, Megan. I guess as Megan says, I don't have the easiest of tasks. It's been a long day, very packed, and a lot of you have been in a lot of the sessions that I was not able to be a part of. But I would like to believe that together somehow we'll figure out what some of the key themes emerging from this day were. I think first I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues and all of you. I picked on the brains of a lot of people, Onela, Arthur, Danielle, Veronica, if she's still in the room, just to get their sense of the reflections from the various sessions they participated in. So certainly this is not completely my reflection, but a reflection of all of us and the discussions that we've had. Having said that, I'll also take full responsibility for everything that may not be representative of everybody's ideas as mine. So I think this conference is very interesting in the sense that we were talking about the asymmetries of power. And conversations about power are very difficult. They're uncomfortable because they force us to deal with the very core of who we are and what we do and how we do it. So when you want to talk about the asymmetries of power, you are necessarily going into very uncomfortable terrain. And I'm glad to say that the quote from Megan this morning when she started was that we must be candid in our analysis of the asymmetries of power and to go beyond the rhetoric and superficial analysis. And I'd like to say that listening to some of the conversations this morning, I think we're able to do that significantly. The conference objectives included challenging us to recognize power asymmetries and structural inequalities within the security and rule of law sectors. This is not an easy exercise by any account, and I must say I give it up to all the speakers who had the task of being able to deal with some of those issues. We cannot talk about the asymmetries of power in security rule of law outside of asymmetries of power in the colonial or gender discourses, because necessarily I think that's where we began to really look at the inequalities in the structures and the systems. These discussions are uncomfortable, they cannot be glossed over. However, that the knowledge platform is discussing asymmetries of power in this conference is proof that we are making progress. Of course, it's an uncomfortable conversation, as I said. And, discussions of asymmetries of power is not a new conversation, particularly for some of us as women, particularly for women from the Global South, because these are conversations that have been going on in our life for many decades. So now that it's happening, I think in the mainstream, as it were, in the rule of law sector and security, is progress that we are moving in the right direction. It's also progress that we are beginning to look deeper and further within ourselves to actually deal with structural inequalities. This morning, we heard how the inequality gap has increased in the light of COVID-19, including in access to vaccines. Against this background of COVID-19 and all the other inequalities that we are aware of, this conference does not call us to do anything that we have not done before. I think it was Mariette this morning who said, the conference is not asking us to do anything revolutionary. It's just asking us to listen. So as we unpack the asymmetries of power, we need to start to look at how it speaks to how we capture and prioritize the needs, the ideas, and actions of those most affected in any situation or in the situations that we are intervening on. It calls upon us to ground our interventions in the realities of those circumstances. Our keynote speaker this morning beautifully articulated how we must consciously make sure to capture the lived realities of those mostly affected where we work or we seek to intervene. I think the sharing of Severine's story of Lucas this morning and also the conversation that she had in the morning with, sorry, you'll forgive me, the lady from Rwanda, I think was proof of how it's important to actually get to hear the voices of those most affected and they become part of the solution. Addressing asymmetries of power requires us, therefore, to confront power in all its forms, both visible and invisible, and all its manifestations. It calls for us to have courage to concede power by acknowledging our privilege. It requires us to be courageous enough to concede that maybe our ideas of what is necessary may not be enough or even relevant in some instances. As I said earlier, addressing asymmetries of power is something that the women's movement has been doing for decades, and I say this with the greatest respect to the work that happens in the justice rule of law sector that I now work in. But I do believe that because it's been the discussions on, studying systems, studying inequalities and structures has been something that the women's movement has done for decades. It's something that can be useful in getting some lessons, and I think there are some lessons that we can learn. So what we have learned from women's organizing is that the first thing, as I said, is that power has layers. It is not one block thing. It is layers, and you have to look at it from all its angles. Some power is not visible, some of it is influence, and that is an important lesson as we begin to unpack the asymmetries of power. We've also learned that more often than not, the most affected actually do have ideas that can change their situations, albeit with a little bit of help. So we are not saying that the experts don't become necessary, they do. But often the help is the people that you are intervening for or with are the people that best know what is happening, so they do have knowledge. They may not be able to package it in our jargon, they may not be able to package it in the way that we put in the frameworks and theories of change, but they certainly do have the knowledge. We've also learned that the most affected have knowledge to address most of their challenges. This morning in the session on feminist knowledge management, Sivdia Harish, and I hope she'll forgive me if I didn't say her name right, shared some old age wisdom from her Lilabai, which is her grandmother. And she said, according to her grandmother, an old patient is better than a new doctor. And she said an old patient is better than a new doctor because the patient knows what they're going through, they know how they react, they know how they respond. So while the new doctor may have all the technology and the knowledge, they do rely on the old patient to be able to get a successful solution. And similarly, I think that is how we should look at the work that we do and where we intervene. From women's organizing, we've also learned the importance of listening to voices of the most affected and together to co-create solutions. I think the presentation from Severin's book this morning was proof of that in fact, when you go to the communities and say, what are the issues, what would you like to deal with, they are able to give you solutions that actually work for them. We've also learned that it's important to embrace local knowledge. And while we are not there yet, it's important to properly attribute that knowledge. We've also learned that it's important in acknowledging knowledge to acknowledge it in affirming ways, and that we move away from field research and HQ analysis. So we co-create the knowledge to come together with solutions that actually work. And I'd like to acknowledge Veronica for this point, because this morning in the discussion, I was the first one to raise my hand and say, it's important that we properly attribute knowledge. And she said to me, and how do we do that? And I think for me, that was a very important question that, I'm still reflecting on how do we do that? And I think that's something that we should also take away. Now, today has been a long day, and I don't want to take too much time. It's been a packed conference. I know that a lot of you are experts in your own areas, and you've already taken probably more notes than I have. The temptation when you come to the end of a conference like this is to say, so what is next? What are next steps? You know how we always have the next steps, chart, and we put the bullet points, next workshop in 2 years. I wish I could say that, there are next steps, that I have 3 next steps, or whatever number of actions that I think we need to do. Unfortunately, I don't. I, however, have what I would like to call carry-away questions. And the carry-away questions that I would like to leave us with relate to 2 aspects. The first one relates to language, and I think it also speaks to one of the themes this morning that we discussed. Now, when we talk about language, I really would like us to reflect on the words that we use. So, for example, when we say we, what do we mean? Because often our we connotes that it is we and them, and that we are the experts, and maybe they are not the experts, and we seek to intervene on their behalf. And I think it's important to also reflect on this we, because in some ways, it also speaks to our privilege, because we are the ones that get to be on the platforms and speak on behalf of others. So how do I address this we and them divide? How do we come to a place where the issues that we are dealing with are also our issues? And I'll tell you, there are no answers. Remember, I said it's a carry-away question. Because also coming from the women's organizing, I was sharing with colleagues this afternoon that a lot of times we talk about women's empowerment, women's voice, and women's participation to the women that we are working with. And then I'll take a step back and say, but what about me Am I part of this conversation? So I think it's something that I would like us to reflect on. Still on the question of language, I think I would also like us to reflect on moving away from using terms that suggest that we are working with victims and not change agents and not leaders in their own rights. So how do we frame the language of the people that we work with or we work for to ensure that, in fact, our interventions speak to leadership, to capacity, to knowledge in the communities and areas that we work on? Still on the issue of language, I think we must also be conscious of some of the terms that we use. I saw a board outside. I'm going to add one word when I step out. When we use terms like the field or the ground or local, and my worst, I don't know whether it's my worst favorite, but the least favorite, and it used to grate me when I used to work in women's organizing, the grassroots. And I'll be like, really? The grass and then the roots under the soil? So it's just for us to reflect, right, on the words that we use as we talk about local knowledge, local capacity, but also even words like capacity building. I mean, it's great because we have to find ways of putting these things in our documents, but do we really mean that there is no capacity? Is there a way in which we can frame it that's more affirming and more recognizing of the communities and the knowledge that we have? But also, I think to unpack the terms that we use often, the terms around experts, and how this can be reflective of the input and the knowledge of the areas and the countries that we're working in. And I'll say this with the greatest respect to those of us that are experts in the room, that we just need to, I think we need to take it with some humility, because our expertise comes from what we have drawn from the areas and the communities that we work with. And then finally, my second question, again, my carry-away question, is how do we conceive the flow? It's all very well and good for us to say, we must stop and we must listen and we must change language, but how do we actually properly give the flow so that we are able to then engage and together come up with questions that actually make sense to our situations, but also that give us affirming results? So those are my few reflections for the day. And at this point, I'll hand over back to Megan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Teresa. That was genuinely perfect, and I really appreciate it. So we have reached the part of the program that I've been a bit nervous about all day. This is to reflect on something that I think a lot of you are probably already aware of, and it's a bit of an elephant in the room. But this will be my last annual conference. And it's been such an incredible privilege to be part of this community. But it's also been an incredibly demanding one. And I have loved and been thrilled by the group of people that I've been able to work with and communicate with, and my team. I love my team. So Messina and Giorgio and Christian and GA and Melissa, I'm not gonna be able to get through these next couple of weeks without you guys, because look at me. So, just to address the elephant in the room, I will be stepping down as head of the Knowledge Platform Security and Rule of Law at the end of this year. And I think that it's because I've been in this role for 5 years now, and it deserves some fresh energy, it deserves some fresh ideas, and I really have every confidence that that energy and those ideas are in this room and online with us today, and I would really welcome for people in the community to step up and find a new person to take the lead and to steer the ship. As I said to someone earlier today, it's a very public role, and I often feel quite a lot of spotlight on this role. But the Knowledge Platform is not the Secretariat, and the Knowledge Platform is certainly not me. The Knowledge Platform is you. The Knowledge Platform are the people online joining us in the sessions, the people in this room. That is the wealth of the people, and the experience and the knowledge that you guys bring, and it's powerful because it's brought together. So, the Knowledge Platform is certainly not ending. It's going on to bigger and better places, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. And I'll be here at the next year's conference, much more relaxed than what you've seen me at today. So, with that, I'm now going to also open up the idea that there are other ways that you guys can get involved in the Knowledge Platform. We have an amazing advisory committee, and unfortunately, we're also going to be seeing a few of those members depart as their terms have ended. So I'm going to now welcome to the stage the chair of the advisory committee, Leanne McKay, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about how you might be able to get involved directly in also supporting the Knowledge Platform in its future. So Leanne, can I welcome you?
Thank you very much, Megan. So you put me an impossible task because I'm supposed to now talk about the advisory committee, and then you just launched this announcement. It's not in my mandate or my speaking notes, but I am going to take this opportunity publicly on behalf of the advisory committee and on behalf of the wider platform community to just say an enormous thank you. A thank you for your leadership, for your obvious commitment and huge amount of energy that you've given to the Knowledge Platform and to the Secretariat. And I know this is not the farewell, so I am going to keep this brief, and we are going to see you tomorrow. But I do have to say, on behalf of all of us, that you are going to be sorely missed and that your contribution has been deeply, deeply appreciated. So a huge thank you from all of us. And now on to a little bit more of the drier stuff, but I would say that it's really been my pleasure to be a member of the advisory committee for the past 4 years and the chair for the past 2. As we wrap up what's been just another fantastic annual conference, I'm going to take a few last minutes of the day, really just to talk about the advisory committee and its role. And this is particularly important this year, as Megan said, because 4 of the members will be concluding their terms at the end of the year. And so this afternoon, I'm going to also announce the process for a new call for nominations to join the advisory committee. But firstly, the current advisory committee comprises of 8 members, and you should be able to see them up on the screen. All their profiles can also be found on the Knowledge Platform's website. And I'm really thrilled that after a bit of a hiatus, many of us were actually able to be here in person in The Hague today. And so I'd like to firstly quickly acknowledge and introduce Graham Simpson, who's the Principal Representative and Senior Peacebuilding Advisor for Interpeace, USA. Mariette Sherman, who I'm not sure if Mariette's here with us right now, but as you saw her this morning, the Director of the Department for Stabilization and Humanitarian Aid for the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Fulco van der Venter, who is the Deputy Director of the Human Security Collective, and of course myself, Leanne, an independent consultant and rule of law specialist. And joining us virtually, we have 3 other members. Lisa Denny, who is probably sound asleep in Australia right now. But she's an independent consultant, also working on security, justice, governance, and development issues. Ibo Hutchfeld, who is in the US right now, the Executive Secretary of the African Security Sector Network. And Sweta Valpillay, who I think is also sleeping in Sri Lanka right now, perhaps, an independent consultant and senior advisor at Conducive Space for Peace. And last but not least, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our newest member of the advisory committee, Ornella, and I'd like to invite you to come up and maybe introduce yourself and say a quick few words.
Maybe I don't need this after all. Okay, wow, this is very high. So thanks a lot, Leanne, for giving me the floor. I'll try and be very brief, but essentially, I just wanted to share a few of the reasons why I joined the advisory committee. So my name is Ornella Modérand. I work with the Institute for Security Studies as a program head for the Sahel, based in Bamako, Mali. I've been working in Mali and with Mali for 8 years now, which is a long time, and which is a time by when you start wondering what are other ways beyond your own immediate in-country involvement, programming work, to actually engage in bigger conversations and reflections about the way in which not just yourself and your organization, but the whole sector proceeds. This is the opportunity that the advisory committee, and I think more broadly, the knowledge platform has provided me. So I'm very excited to be a part of this. I think today was a day that confirmed this, that confirmed the willingness of this community to just challenge our own ways. I hope we can continue doing that and even keep doing it more. I very much commit to asking some of the hard questions, so count on me for that. And hopefully this will be just an invitation to everyone else who wishes to bring their expertise, be it thematic, be it geographic, and to bring mainly their commitment to, yes, get out of the usual ways and challenge our thinking, challenge our processes, challenge our practices. We want to be challenged. I think this would be it for me. Thanks.
So thank you, Ornella. As you can see, we really have a very diverse and quite exceptional group of people that are bringing together a wealth of experience and across countries and across regions. We have loads of thematic expertise ranging from conflict sensitivity and conflict prevention and peace building, security sector governance, justice, rule of law promotion, development, you know, and to name just a few. The group is made up of policymakers, practitioners, researchers, programmers, and coming from civil society, from academia, from research institutions, international organizations, and also from government. But as Ornella just perfectly provided the example, this is a group of real critical thinkers and doers. And I can really attest to the fact that this is a group that is really committed to questioning and challenging the usual way we do business. And in doing so, in order to advance the work that all of us are doing. And most importantly, the advisory committee are representatives of you, the wider platform community. Half of the positions of the committee will be filled through a call for nominations from the platform community itself. And I'll explain the process for that in a minute. The other half are selected by the consortium partners and the platform secretariat. And one position is always dedicated to a representative of the Dutch MFA, and we've been very lucky and very much appreciate having Mariette in that position now. Each of the members serves for 2 years with a possibility of extending for another 2, and the chair is chosen by those sitting advisory committee members. So I just want to give just a very quick few words about the role of the advisory committee for all of those of you that are starting to think about whether or not you want to join this great group. The first is really to provide advice and input into the strategic direction of the knowledge platform. Secondly, it's about being a mouthpiece for the interests of the platform community and also feeding that information, feeding ideas back to the community itself. And then finally, acting as an ambassador and advocate for the knowledge platform's approach to learning and knowledge uptake. So the members will meet twice a year. One meeting is always associated with the annual conference. We'll be meeting tomorrow, which I'm very much looking forward to. We're also asked to do things ranging from reviewing some of the applications for the Knowledge Management Fund that some of you may have applied for. We're also asked to assist with the annual conference. Many of us have been focal points for specific sessions that have been run today. And we all act as advocates for the work of the Knowledge Platform globally. So that is my overview. Sorry that it was a little bit dry and technical at the end of a long day, but what I do want to do now, and it's really my pleasure to announce that we're now going to open the call for nominations for the 4 positions that will become vacant for the Advisory Committee. We would like to invite you, members of the platform community, to either nominate someone or nominate yourself to take up a position with the Advisory Committee. And you'll see on the slide now, there's a QR code, so if you're super keen, you can go straight there now and do a nomination. You can also go to the Knowledge Platform website, and there's a link there. It will provide you more information, and you also have some time. We'll be keeping the application process open, and applications close on the 21st of November. In 2022, what we're really looking for is to ensure that we have an advisory committee that follows Ornella's lead, is ready to step outside convention, test boundaries. We're also looking for a group that really represents and is very inclusive of the diversity of voices that are across the platform. We want a good gender balance, of course, and representation, I think really importantly, from across the full range of regions, but also especially from countries that are fragile and crisis affected. We're seeking applicants who have a proven track record in rule of law and security, but that could be at the junior, mid-level, or senior level professionals, and also a real mixture of perspectives and experiences. Programmers, researchers, policymakers, we want the whole mix. So again, if you or someone you know would be interested in joining the committee, being part of the Knowledge Platform and really helping to steer its future direction, then we really, really encourage you to either check out the QR code here, go to the website, and lodge your nomination. And I realize again that was a little bit of the more boring presentation, but I'm now going to ask one of the departing advisory committee members to step up and say a few inspiring words about his experience over the last 4 years, which will hopefully also inspire many of you to put forward an application. So thank you very much, and Fulco, if you would come up and say a few words, that would be wonderful.
I have the privilege of a microphone, which feels a bit better. Inspiring, I don't know. I hope I can do that. The first inspiring secret I'm going to reveal is that KPAC is not the Knowledge Platform annual conference. It's the Knowledge Platform Advisory Committee. So let that be a stimulator for the next ones that's stepping on board. Just a very few words. I've been 4 years now. You could see the pictures, so some of us have really had a hard time seeing how we changed physically. But that's not due to the advisory committee. I think it's good to go a little bit back in history. The knowledge platform stems from the time of the 3D approach. I remember around 2012, it was about Afghanistan, it was about Mali, it was about how civil-military action could go together, or maybe not, how you could have a comprehensive approach between the military, the diplomats, and the defense, and the development sector. And during conferences and meetings, you could see a lot of uniformed people around, which you don't see today, which actually, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's an interesting change that we had through the years, that in the beginning, security was very much seen from probably hard security and the interference with the softer parts, and the balance changed. You could also see that it was very The Hague-centered at that time. So there was a big crowd here, and there was a little circle outside. And I hope, and I really admit that there has been a lot of transformation there, which also reflects in the advisory committee. You said it. There's a lot of diversity in terms of the kind of people that are there, where they come from, the levels that they come from. And that's important because security is quite big. It's a big issue. Rule of law is very different in different parts of the world. So it's good to have people on board that come from different realities and bring that together. And it's not an easy task. And especially for Megan, you did a tremendous job with the people on the Secretariat to listen to us and to make something out of the soup of advices and input that we gave. And I remember two very remarkable moments. The first one was the review of the knowledge platform. It was 3 years ago. And it was a complete evaluation of the whole structure. So what is the knowledge platform about? What is it in terms of identity? Who owns it? Who are the members? Is it a network, or is it more like a very loose kind of dynamic? What is the role of the secretariat compared to the membership? What are criteria of membership? How broad could it be? How focused? So all those questions in terms of the constitution, but also the terms of the strategy and what kind of focus we should have, be put on the table. And it was very inspiring to rethink a thing that already exists, that has a dynamic, but at the same time you have the privilege to think about, maybe reinvent it. And some of the things that we put on the table we actually see here today. So there was one of them. And the other one was more like a bit of a trauma that we all experienced last year at the beginning of the pandemic, not knowing what was going on, being locked down, sitting for the first time in a meeting on Zoom. And there was a lot of uncertainty and fear among everybody of us. And at that time it was so interesting to see that everybody tried to bring a little bit of the impact of COVID in their own society. What does it mean in terms of the fear and the uncertainty, but also what do governments do? How do they react? How do they take security measures actually to pretend or probably really prevent COVID? And what is it in terms of the use and the abuse? And we try to bring that together from different parts of the world and different levels and try to make something out of it. And that was put in a blog that was on the side. I think it's probably there. And there was a lot of discussion. And now we are more used to it, of course. Now it's more like we have more access to the information. But at that time, we were, like everyone, very much shocked. And what does that mean for a knowledge platform that pretends to know something, right? It's knowledge, to have some knowledge about something that you really don't know. So just some small reflections from a 4-year period. I really want to thank all the members of the advisory committee, the secretariat, and the members, of course, of the broader group that inspired us. And I don't know, I tried to break out in tears, but the emotions don't come like you. I envy you. That would be beautiful. But I will be back next year in a more relaxed mode, I can promise you. But it was really a pleasure to do that. And I hope that my personal experience is a little bit of an appeal to the next one to help to navigate the knowledge platform through the challenges. Thank you so much.
So, Graham and I are here with the very difficult task of thanking 4 incredible members of our advisory committee. And so the 4 members that will be departing are very near and dear to us. And we just want to make sure that they get the recognition that they deserve. So I'm going to start with Lisa because I think she is asleep, at least I hope so. But Lisa has been an amazing person who has been able actually to work with for I've worked with Lisa for over 8 years now in various capacities, and she's such a practical mind as well as a sharp analytical mind. And I remember a particular moment when we were in a discussion about hybridity, actually, and somebody brought up the idea that, you know, hybridity in the biological world, you see, you know, ligers and mules, but aren't they all sterile? What does that mean? And Lisa kind of raised her hand and says, I think we might be taking the metaphor too far. Like, I'm not sure if that's any relevant anymore. So I really love that she kind of keeps us grounded quite often. Sveta Vilpalai, also hopefully asleep, has always been an incredible voice and advocate for looking at structures of power. Actually, part of today, I was super excited to have Sveta involved in the conception and in drawing ideas and attention to the aspects of asymmetry and power asymmetry, because I think they've really been a thrust of a lot of the ways in which she's engaged in the knowledge platform at the advisory committee level. Volko, I think I might have known you maybe the longest of all of the advisory committee members, and I really appreciate, exactly as you were reflecting on, the way in which you've helped us try to keep in step with how security can mean so many things to so many different people, and there is actual interest and incentives in trying to view it one way and in trying to get other people to view it that same way. And so always being aware of how we were framing security and whose perspective we were prioritizing in that has always been incredibly valuable in the discussions. questions, and I really want to thank you for that. And finally, Leanne. Leanne has been an incredible chair. She's been a dream chair. As somebody heading the Secretariat, my team knows I love planning, I love plans. And I remember when Leanne was tentatively sticking her hand up to think, well, maybe I'll take on this chair position. And I said, yes, because plan knows plan. Right? And I recognized exactly where Leanne would be able to step in and really help shape the agendas of the meeting, make sure we were on task and on target. And you've been absolutely magnificent in that role for the last 2 years. So I really wanted to thank you for that. And Graham, I just want to give you the opportunity to say just any general remarks you have about having worked with these people and worked on the advisory committee in general.
So thank you. And I just want to address Lisa and Sveta, because I have absolutely no doubt they're awake and watching this and grateful for the recognition and acknowledgement. Now, I have to say, for me, these 4 people are the best advert for the advisory committee you could have. And partly because they are so much of this and in this community rather than separate for it. I mean, I've watched at various of the conferences and in our meetings and online conversations, these people wrestle with the issues that mean so much to us as a community. Balancing approaches to the prevention of terrorism with the need to maintain normative commitments to human rights, unwavering commitment to local voice, agency, and leadership. The conversation Fulco just raised about, and you spoke about Fulco, this sort of notion that security is a contested term and that we have to rethink it, and that there's such value to that. The assertion of justice and human rights and accountability as indispensable to the durability of peace rather than an obstacle to it. Debating contested notions and critically thinking about resilience. It is extraordinary to be in the room with these people, and it's going to be a terrible loss to not have them. The quality of strategic thinking that you brought is unbelievable. The integration of policy, practice, and scholarship is exactly what this platform is all about. The ability to be self-reflective and to learn while doing, it's what this platform is in these people on the advisory committee. The reach they bring and the respect for local networks is what makes this organization work. So I want to thank you for nothing, because you leave shoes that are impossible to fill.
Very good. So may we have a round of applause. And now that our main business is done, I'm going to start drawing to a close the annual conference. But before I do, a very important recognition needs to be made. I would like to see Melissa, Gia, Giorgio, Christian, and Messina. Please at least stand up, get your recognition. This is my team. These are the people who brought me to tears. They are amazing people. They have been with me the whole time. They brought everything they could, and they deserve, so make sure, buy them a drink at the free bar. All right, and last but not least, you guys probably saw it coming, there's a survey. We would love to have your feedback. We learn from feedback. We need it. It needs to be critical, it needs to be candid, it can also be positive, we love that too. But that's how we learn, that's how we improve. So please, you're gonna get it in your email, but if you don't wanna just fill up your inbox, go ahead and fill it out now, and share with us what you felt about today, how we can improve, how we can get stronger, what did you love, what do we need to keep. And as a little extra incentive, we are going to choose one of the survey respondents will receive a signed copy of Séverine Atasser's book. So you can use that as an incentive. It's a little bit of a lottery. Oh, it's the wrong QR code. It'll be in your email. Thanks, Melissa. All right, that's it. Let's go enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you all.